If this information from the rating board is correct, Final Fantasy XVI is about to get real spicy. Let's talk about it. Okay, I really love Final Fantasy, and I'm really excited for Final Fantasy 16. I play a ton of Final Fantasy 14. It's already reached in my top 3 most favorite Final Fantasies of all time, and Yoshi P, the guy who turned around Final Fantasy 14, is pretty much leading the helm on 16. 14 is not afraid to go to dark places when it really wants to, and now there's a report. According to the MSRB from Brazil, there's a couple things that popped up from the Ministry of Justice and Public Security, and the rating for Final Fantasy 16 is going to be rated mature. So you might be asking yourself, why is this rated mature? The list goes as followed. Sex scenes that are not fully shown. I mean, it's Final Fantasy. We get, a little bit sexy, but not all the way. Intentional deaths, which, again, that's something that happens in Final Fantasy, so I'm not all that surprised. Torture scenes depicting suffering victims. That is a bit new, but again, I feel still in the realm of Final Fantasy. Drug use. That is interesting. But prostitution, very interesting. I can't remember another time that a Final Fantasy game had something explicit like prostitution in it. If I'm wrong and I'm just not remembering at this moment, let me know in the comment section below. And just sexual content that is shown and discussed, which is very vague. To be very honest, it's very, very vague in that could be something as simple as, girls with short skirts or guys with their, shirts off being all muscular. I mean, who we're not the ones saying what's going on, especially since the first one says they don't show anything in the sex scenes. So I'm not expecting The Witcher when it comes to the sex scenes. I'm expecting a little bit more tame. The last one is hate crimes, which is very interesting, but I think that comes down to what the story is really about. If you watch some of the trailers and some of the information about the way the story is going, it's really about a war of factions. Matter of fact, it kind of reminded me of the completely nerd out here. It kind of reminded me of Naruto and all the villages. But all these people had these special beings in them. They had the Infrits and, all those people in them, all the summons in them. And, they're at war with each other. And these beings are just trying to, live their life, but they're being used as like a tool of war and all this stuff. I think that's what the story is going. So having something like that, I can honestly say is probably the issue. Probably the same way like Naruto back in the, the early Narutos, that he was treated like an outcast because he had the, the fox demon in him. So I'm not very surprised. But again, as somebody who plays something like Daggerfall, I'm sure is going to go nowhere near the levels of that game. This game, Daggerfall from Elder Scrolls, it was the second major game in the series. You could get attacked in certain areas if you weren't the correct race. There are people who are supposed to give you missions that will straight out not speak to you. Not only if your fame or infamy is high or low enough, but if you're just not the right race. There's a lot of stuff in that game that I'm sure is 10 times worse than whatever we're going to see in Final Fantasy 16. My guess when it comes to all this is all going to be more for dramatic effect. If Final Fantasy 14 is a bit of a blueprint of how that's going to go, that stuff does happen. People in Final Fantasy 14 do die, lose limbs, sexual innuendo is implied. There's a lot of stuff that happens. It's never explicit. Well, sometimes the violence is, but for the most part, it's never explicit, but it's all there to build some type of drama. So personally, and this is just my opinion, you guys might disagree on this. Personally, when I look at this list, while individually, I'm just like, okay, I completely understand why they want to make this mature and certain things, depending if they do it right. Because especially with stuff like hate crimes, it's a very thin line that you need to kind of dress with that type of stuff. But it's not going to be something that's going to really disturb anyone. Matter of fact, it'll probably be things that just kind of fit the flow of the story to build drama and make you hate the bad guy even more, or make you feel sympathetic to whoever the good guy is trying to save and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my overall take on this. But of course, if the game comes out and it's just insane, That's a completely different story, but again, I am not expecting that from Yoshi. Speaking of the producer, he was actually interviewed by GameStop and this situation came up, and he has a quote that I think really sums up what to expect in this game. He says, and I quote, "When trying to tell a story with difficult adult themes, these ratings can end up becoming a somewhat of a hindrance, and you find yourself changing things you wanted to do in the game based on that rating. This time, I wanted to make sure that we tell the story that we wanted in a way that we wanted to. We decided to pursue a mature rating in most of the regions that will be releasing this game." So, what do you think about all this? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for being awesome.